Okay, let's just dive straight into this. Today, we're popping the hood on modern workplace dynamics. For this explainer, we're unpacking a massive study that directly links our inherent leadership styles, our daily stress levels, and, you guessed it, the corporate bottom line. We're going to look at real empirical data from over 800 American business students to see exactly how the next generation of leaders ticks and what companies literally have to do to protect them. So, let's get into it.
Right off the bat, I want you to ask yourself, is your workplace stress actually costing your company money? We usually think of stress as a me problem, right? Something we just deal with after hours or vent about over a drink. But what if that daily grind, that familiar feeling of being completely overwhelmed, what if that's actually a massive financial drain on the organization?
Well, the data is in, and it's honestly staggering. The research shows that employees who cite stress as a health risk lose exactly 5.7 weeks of productivity every single year. Just let that sink in for a second. Almost 6 weeks of lost output per stressed employee. And get this, the study points out that productivity losses tied to chronic diseases are actually up to 400% more than the cost of treating the diseases themselves. So, unmanaged stress, it's not just a headache, it's an absolute productivity killer. Which brings us to Section 1. The human capital asset. To really understand human capital, we have to look at what we're putting it through. And it turns out there's a really important distinction to make here, because not all stress is created equal. On one hand, we've got eustress. This is the positive kind, the good stress that actually motivates us, like the thrill of a massive presentation or a tight but really exciting deadline. But then, on the flip side, we have distress. This is the dysfunctional stuff. It causes undue hardship, serious health risks, and that crippling feeling of overload. The research is crystal clear. Organizations have got to maintain their people, their human capital, with the exact same care they give to a $1 million machine. And that means minimizing this harmful distress.
Moving right along to Section 2, task versus relationship. Let's see how leadership plays into all of this. So, leadership and management styles are actually huge determinants of role stress. The researchers zeroed in on two fundamental dimensions of leadership. First up is task behavior. This is your classic top-down communication, where the leader's main focus is just getting the job done. Boom. Now, contrast that with relationship behavior. This one is all about joint communication, building trust, and actively providing support to the team. I want you to mentally categorize yourself right now. What's your default? Are you more focused on checking off boxes, or are you focused on supporting the people who are checking those boxes? Okay, so, Section 3, what the data says. Let's see how tomorrow's leaders actually measure up. The researchers surveyed 813 American working adult business students, basically the managers and leaders of tomorrow. And the big takeaway here is actually pretty surprising. Today's business students are highly relationship-oriented. They scored way higher on building relationships than strictly focusing on tasks. The researchers think this might be because modern business education puts such a heavy emphasis on interpersonal skills now. People are realizing that to effectively get things done, you really need strong relationships first. But when we slice the data by demographics, some really fascinating differences pop up. Looking at task orientation, the male respondents skewed significantly higher, pulling in an average score of 39.06 compared to 37.27 for females. So the data is showing a pretty clear tendency for the guys in this sample to lean a bit more toward that top-down, get-the-job-done approach. Now, immediately contrast that with relationship orientation. The female respondents naturally gravitated a lot more heavily toward this style, scoring 42.86 compared to 41.39 for the males. It's a clear indicator that female leaders in this demographic are significantly more relationship-oriented and less task-oriented than their male counterparts. And look, understanding these inherent differences, it's absolutely crucial for building balanced, dynamic teams that don't just drive each other crazy.
Let's pivot a little bit for Section 4, the cost of education.
You probably assume that more education just automatically makes you a better, more well-rounded leader, right? Well, the data shows a really interesting shift. Folks who've earned a master's degree actually show a significantly higher task orientation, scoring 38.66 compared to those with just a high school degree who came in at 36.69. The researchers theorize that people with graduate degrees may just be hyper-aware of the need to get things done to climb the corporate ladder, or they simply just have way more on their plate at any given time. And here is the real kicker in the data. All that extra education, it comes with a massive burden. The study found that respondents with graduate degrees perceive significantly higher levels of stress overload.
I mean, think about it. More education usually equals higher-level jobs, heavier corporate responsibilities, and a much trickier balancing act between work and life. Ironically, the smartest people in the room are often the ones feeling the most overwhelmed. So how in the world do we protect these highly educated, highly stressed future leaders? That brings us to Section 5, Wellness Programs and Productivity. If you're ever going to pitch a wellness program to a CEO, you have to understand this one critical distinction: the difference between ROI and ROV. ROI, return on investment, is the hard financial savings, right? Lowering actual healthcare costs, reducing absenteeism. But honestly, equally important is ROV, return on value. We're talking the soft savings: increased employee morale, reduced turnover, a huge boost to the corporate image, and way higher job satisfaction. Bring those together, and you've got a value on investment that proves wellness isn't just some nice-to-have perk, it's a hardcore financial strategy. To ground this in reality, what do these programs actually look like on the ground? Well, we're talking tangible things: work/life balance initiatives like on-site childcare subsidies, weight management programs that offer real nutritional counseling and healthier cafeteria choices, and fitness programs, think on-site gyms or club subsidies. It's really about building an entire organizational culture of wellness that supports the employee from every angle. Now, if you're sitting there thinking this is all just fluffy HR theory, wait until you hear this number: $130 million. That is exactly what tech giant IBM spent on employee wellness programs starting back in 2004. They saw the immense, crippling cost of chronic disease and unmanaged stress, and they decided to tackle it head-on with some very serious capital.
But how did IBM actually get their people to use these programs? Simple: hard financial incentives. They literally offered a $150 rebate just for family fitness participation. They handed out actual cash to employees who quit smoking, lost weight, or started eating healthier. They did the math and figured out that paying people to be healthy is a brilliant, proven corporate strategy. The upfront cost is completely dwarfed by the massive savings in productivity and healthcare down the road.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 6, Investing in Your Future. I want to read this powerful little excerpt straight from the study because it just perfectly nails the paradigm shift we're talking about here. Health and wellness programs are not an expense, they are an investment in the organization's human capital. Listen, if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, let it be that mindset shift. Human capital, physically and mentally, creates a competitive advantage that is literally impossible for your rivals to copy. So how do we apply all of this today? Here's a quick, actionable game plan. Step 1, audit your leadership styles. Figure out if your managers are overly task-oriented and causing distress. Step 2, actually measure your workforce stress, exactly like you'd measure revenue. Step 3, invest in real, tangible wellness incentives. Remember IBM. And finally, Step 4, use these physical wellness programs to build mental toughness. The study highlights that building physical strength literally trains the brain to push through obstacles. It makes your team way more resilient.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to chew on. Take a hard look at your own company. Are you actually investing in your human capital, or are you just burning it out? Because as the data shows, ignoring stress overload isn't just bad for your team's health, it's an absolute disaster for your bottom line. It's time to make that shift from distress to eustress.